Welcome to the Smart CEO Smart Chat. I am Kyra Hardwick, and I am thrilled to be here with you. Thanks for tuning in. We hope that this episode will be an incredible influence on the way that you do the work that you do every day. So whether you're a smart CEO, working from home, working from the office, simply navigating your life and family, whatever it is, today's the day you made a great decision to tune into our podcast and get this smart talk. So let's dig in.
Welcome back, everyone, to yet another episode of the Smart Talk podcast. I am today's host, Alena Conley, and I am head of learning and impact here at the Kyra Company. And I am joined by Dr. Aimy Steele. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alena. Good to be here.
So Dr. Aimy is a member of our newest Smart CEO Capacity Builder cohort based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And so I am excited to have a very rich conversation with her because she is truly a gem, North Carolina's gem. So I would love for you to first just kind of talk to us about how you got into this space. Tell us a little bit about the new North Carolina project.
Sure. So thank you, Alena. It has been such a remarkable honor to be able to be in this cohort. So I am very thankful. So I got to the space of New North Carolina Project really by saying yes to advocating for others. I was in a space where I served as a K-12 school principal after having been a Spanish teacher. And I saw some of the issues happening with public education and with teachers in general. And I just wanted to do something better for teachers. I got so tired of getting into a situation where we come up with these amazing budgets and none of them ever got approved by our local elected officials. So I decided to take matters into my own hands and run for one of those local elected offices. I then, before I filed to run, decided to run for a state office, which would have more impact on public education. And after I ran, I was unsuccessful, but I did move the needle tremendously. I ran again, did not win after 2 years, and decided that I really needed to understand why I didn't win. And what came of that was understanding that there were more Black and brown voters who just did not get out the vote, as well as others who didn't vote. And there were 1 million plus people who could have voted but didn't. And that information kind of shocked me. So I decided to turn that shock into a nonprofit called New North Carolina Project. So that's where it started. But where it ended, or where it is currently, is a little bit different, but still in the advocacy and social impact space. So that's how I got here.
Okay. Tell us how it's evolved.
Sure. So we started focusing on just voting rights and helping voters to get out to vote and making sure they understood the power of their vote. It evolved into a social impact nonprofit with 4 key pillars, and those pillars are now economic mobility, civic engagement, housing security, and public safety. So with those 4 pillars, we are able to do the work that keeps voters engaged all year round, and then we come back to them and ask them for their vote. So it's a much different model than just going to them and saying, hey, you need to vote. Now we can go to them and say, hey, this is the thing that we are doing. This is the program. Here's the benefit. Here are some things that are happening in the community that we can help you with year round. So stay engaged with us all year. And then when it's time to vote, voting just seems natural. So that's how it has evolved.
So we just came off of a series of primary elections. And ever since I've been able to vote, I have casted my ballot. But I also, as a pretty educated voter, often feel overwhelmed and stumped when it comes to my local elections. I'm looking at it. My friends were good about kind of sending these Cliff Notes versions. But when it comes to me trying to figure out how to align with what I want to see, it doesn't always feel easy. So I'll just give you an example. Last year, our Fulton County Public Schools here in Atlanta decided to close our elementary school. And their cause for closing it was low enrollment. And so once they make this decision, they then allow the community to come in and essentially tell them how we feel, give them reasons why they shouldn't close, make a case per se, even though in our mind, it really just was already a decision that was made. But during that process, we're in front of the school board, right? And so now in this most recent election, many of those seats are up for reelection. And it was very important for me to remember every single person that voted against our schools staying open, right? But it just still wasn't clear to me, like, where do I do this? How do I find what they believe, what they support? So, for someone who wants to be engaged, what is the process that you think is the least overwhelming way to figure out how to vote locally?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. And to prevent people from having to do a whole bunch of research, what I always recommend is go to a website that has every candidate listed, and that's usually vote411.org. So that's a key resource. But the other one is to align yourself with some local community based organization that does a great job of giving you an overview of all the candidates that are running. Then I highly recommend, because unfortunately the voter still has to take on some responsibility of finding out information. So I highly recommend attending candidate forums. My organization hosts candidate forums before every election, and it usually is held before early voting starts. So it gives everyone an opportunity to hear and see all of the candidates running. So if you didn't have a chance to do any kind of research or go to Vote 411 or go to ballotopedia.com, which is a website that has every candidate who has filed to run for office in the entire United States for all of the local elected offices and state and federal. It has everyone listed with a description of who they are and what they stand for. If you hadn't had a chance to do that, you still should be able to go to a candidate forum and be able to take a look around and hear some of the candidates and what they're talking about. But the voter has to still do something. Unfortunately, the information doesn't just come to us like we really need it to. But if we do just a couple things, visit a couple of those websites that give all the information about every candidate, or tune in to a local organization who is having a candidate forum, that's really the best way to learn about who's out there. And I love what you said you did. You went to the school board meetings, you participated, and you paid attention, then you remembered. And what I always tell local elect or any elected official is we have long memories. And my organization has really long memory. And we also tell the people who we remember. So we can help elect you if you do the right thing by the people we represent, or we can help unelect you. We call that firing people, because we, the taxpayers, elect people who work for us and on our behalf. So that we are their employer.
I love that. So when we think about things that have been happening recently in terms of people losing access to vote because of redistricting or all of these things that are feeling like threats, right? People are like, it's just getting more chaotic in terms of my ability to vote. And it feels like the easy thing to do is just say, I'm out. This my vote doesn't count anyway, right? But more than ever, we know that it's a time for people to really lean in and understand what's what. What is your approach? And this can be either from your company's point of view or even your own just personal experience when dealing with someone who just has felt overwhelmed by the process, not in the way that I talked about, but just more so just voting in America in general.
Yeah, my approach and my organization's approach, as well as my staff, is to meet people where they are. You cannot force someone to become the level of voter you are based on one conversation. Sometimes it's just a very simple, hey, can you come to an event? Other times it's, can you read this little small postcard or a piece of information? Many times it is having a conversation with someone and understanding what their barriers are. And what I always tell people is sometimes you don't have to understand all the pieces. You just got to do the action and have the discipline. We wake up every day, we go to work sometimes and don't feel like it, right? We have the discipline to go. So many times people just need to have the discipline to vote, whether they understand the whole process or not. And I think people hide behind the, I don't know, I can't do it, I don't understand, I don't know enough, because they just simply don't want to do it. But yet they took the time to register to vote. And that always sends me. If you've taken the time to register to vote, then why wouldn't you vote? It would be
Right.
different if you were automatically registered when you got your driver's license, which does happen in some states. And if you didn't really want to do it, but they made you do it because it's a part of the function of like the DMV or function of the Department of Health and Human Services in your state. Either way, if you chose to register, then you should choose to vote. So my approach is to meet people where they are, not to shame them, but just to find out where is the barrier to actually exercising the right to vote. And the last thing I'll share about that part is if all Black and brown people voted on the same day at the same time, meaning in the same election cycle, we would be shocked at how many elections we could actually decide, because that's how many we are and that's how powerful we are. We are so numerous that we literally can decide every election in the entire United States, local, state, and federal. But we don't know our power, and we don't recognize that the power is being taken from us strategically because we don't know. So once we know our power, we can actually rule the world. We can actually decide every election because that's how numerous we are. But people just think we're still 12% of the population. We're not. That census number is so old and outdated. We've been more than 12% of the population for decades. We just don't tell people that we're here. And that's because of historically distrust in the system of the census. So knowing that our numbers are so high, Black and brown people can actually decide every single election. And I do my best to educate them on that, educate us on that so that we can vote. And then I think being consistent as the example in your family, your community, your circle of influence is what will help your friends. There used to be a time in my life where no one texted me before an election about who to vote for. It just wasn't a thing. When I ran for office, I started getting more texts like, who should I vote for? Who should I vote for? Now I can pretty much clock it. I get about 20 texts every single election of, okay, where's the sheet you give me to tell me who to vote for on my sample ballot? I know my ballot, or they'll send me the sample ballot and say, who should I vote for? So people are becoming more and more educated. Everyone has to take that posture with working with their community and their circle of influence. If I just take responsibility for my 20, you take responsibility for your 20, then your friend takes responsibility for her 20. By the time we finish, we'll have a fish fry. Like everybody will be voting. We just got to.
That's so true because, again, I've always voted, but definitely wasn't actively in it, right? And one of my good girlfriends, Monica, who's also the producer for my podcast, she has a journalism background, so she always has just kind of been in the research, right? And so she has just become like our political guru, but also we end up in these massive debates in our text about like who's this, and like my candidate got the nominee this week and hers did not. So I'm like in the text talking mess, but it's like good banter because I think that it makes it social capital amongst like your peers because you understand what's happening. And when you find yourself in those texts and you're like, dang, I don't know nothing about these candidates, it does make you want to go and do your research, right? So I think that the people who are listening to this, who know that they are those people that have more information, kind of getting into those group chats and having those casual conversations about impact. Or as my friend, her biggest pet peeve is, why do we know every candidate's favorite hot wing order? Because Atlanta is like all about wings, but we don't know this and that. I'm tired of hearing about people lemon pepper as they favorite this and that. And I'm like, listen, he just tried to get to the culture. So it's just a fun thing. Okay, so let's switch gears just a little bit because I know that you have the nonprofit, but you also work in the commercial real estate space and they talk to each other. So tell us about that from a business model standpoint.
Sure. So I'll start with the nonprofit that we under our housing security pillar, we do energy and weatherization upgrades on homes, which directly impacts people's ability to stay in their home and it be affordable, especially when you learn that people's energy bills are sometimes higher than their mortgage or their rent. And that's problematic. So continuing with that housing security pillar, what we also are getting into is building affordable housing. So that's a dream of mine, is for the nonprofit to actually own and operate affordable housing projects within the North Carolina space or wherever we work. So in my other life, I am a career real estate broker, career real estate developer, and really my interests are divided. My interests have always been divided because I see a collision of all these ways of helping people. The one thing I do in my life every single day is help people. but I do that through a variety of ways. So commercial real estate is one of them. I work with clients and churches to help them develop their pieces of property or learn how to develop. So I recently just launched a cohort called Developer Academy, which teaches real estate agents or just private citizens, individuals who are not licensed, how to become a developer and how to develop their first piece of property. Because people tell me all the time, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to do something with my land. So I specialize in helping people develop their real estate, keeping it in their family or in their name, or buying it for themselves or for their family, their trust, or their small group of friends, and then developing it into something that's going to be profitable. So that is the space I love to work in because I love helping people and I want people to have access to capital. And you can't really tap into capital in a way that I think is truly beneficial until you have great credit or own property, and credit is a part of that. But owning property so you can use the equity to be able to make additional purchases or different investments. So that is what I do on the real estate side.
I love what you said about you have multiple interests, right? And I think that's the reality for many of us, especially in the entrepreneurial space. So when you were thinking about how can I tap into my passion of helping people, but through all of the lanes that I'm interested in, what was that strategy for you on the back end in terms of first giving yourself permission, right? Because we're oftentimes like, pick one, right? Don't be the multi-hyphenate that's such a generalist. How did you give yourself permission to do multiple passions? And then how did you start to kind of create the strategy for that?
Yeah, so that's interesting because I didn't really give myself permission to create. Like I gave myself permission, but I didn't have a strategy. There was no strategy. I generally wake up every day and think, how can I help people today? And then I look at my skill set and I think, yeah, I'm interested in that. So I go pursue that. Currently, I work in energy. I'm one of the only Black females who works in energy as it relates to energy efficiency, weatherization, upgrades. It's all related to real estate, but I didn't know, I knew what a kilowatt was based on my power bill, but I don't really know what a kilowatt is. And so
Mhm.
now I'm learning in that space because it's helping people reduce their energy bills. Because all I really care about is reducing the energy bill, but you got to learn about the kilowatts on the way. You got to learn about the power grid. You got to learn about solar and you got to learn about this so that you can understand it. And I have what is called a synthesizing mind. When you read Five Minds for the Future, I have a synthesizing mind. So I like to take in lots of information and then spit it out in a clear format that returns it to the end user in a way that he or she can understand, because I'm a teacher also. And that's the superpower of teachers. So, what happened along my journey as I reflect back on those 25 years, these last 25 years, it really starts with me wanting to solve a problem. Once I
Mhm.
solve a problem in my head, or I think I have a solution, that solution usually involves some learning, my passion, and then the permission to pursue my learning and passion together, which then
Mhm.
results in a thing that I'm doing. So the thing could be real estate. The thing is the nonprofit running for office, which led to the nonprofit. Now I have a passion to develop real estate. And I told God, I want to develop real estate for myself. I don't just want to develop it for others. I want to own multi-family properties and commercial spaces that my family can own, that we can put in our trust that we have, and my
Mhm.
kids can have it for generations to come. So God provided yet another opportunity, which we're embarking upon. And I'd love to tell you about that too. But that opportunity will allow us the capital we need to be able to build what I'm trying to build in our personal lives. So along the way, I just say yes to the thing that I'm passionate about that involves helping people. And if it collides with something else, usually it merges. Usually there's no collision. A collision is where it just completely misaligns and it is just not in alignment with what I'm doing. So if I decided to go to medical school tomorrow and then put myself in the space of studying for the MCAT, applying for medical school, that would be complete misalignment,
Mhm.
complete misalignment. And I know that it doesn't feel right. It don't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel in alignment. It just feels weird, right? It's not what but usually when God gives me the okay to pursue and yes, it is aligned and it feels good. And it doesn't always feel, it's not easy. It just feels right. So I guess I've given myself permission to say yes for a very long time. And then
Mhm.
things have piled up that are all aligned over the years.
Yeah. That's good. That's very freeing. And I think that's going to help a lot of people who are trying to marry those things. 'Cause I don't want to give this up, right? I want both and, right? So you said you didn't have a strategy. So obviously coming into the cohort, our very first session was around strategic planning. So I would love to hear your experience with getting into a space where it's all about building the strategy and how that's impacted you and your company.
So it's interesting that no, I didn't have a strategy. But once I decide on a thing, then I like to create a strategy. But
Mhm.
I can't say that it always works out because what I have learned in my life, and I don't know why God deals with me this way, but what I have learned is the more strategy and planning I do, the less it actually works out that way.
Mhm.
Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not to plan. I'm a planner for sure. I have
Mhm.
two calendars, a paper one, a passion planner, and a Google calendar. So it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that I don't plan. It simply means that every time I write down the structure of how I want it to go, God always says, "Oh, that's great. So I'm going to change it." So I
Mhm.
almost always have experienced where when I write it down, it's not going to be that way.
Okay.
And so coming into the Smart CEO, what I had to just be disciplined about is just writing it down anyway in my mind, knowing that God just deals with me differently. I don't know why, I can't explain it, but it always works out that way. That
Mhm.
every great, wonderful plan I write down and start pursuing, it never
Mhm.
goes that way.
No, I understand that. And I think that's what we always talk about is leaving room for the magic to happen, right? The unexpected things that you can't even predict. So what would you say then was your favorite part of being in the cohort?
So my favorite part is actually just getting to know the people and then
Mhm.
working with the people, the other cohort members on alignment and things. So we had a separate meeting just for real estate and we just all talked about our interests, our needs, our desires, our ways of working together. And just we also in one of our cohorts or one of our meetings, we had a breakout room where we had to choose what kind of person we were, and so we're all the ideation people. So we all went to the idea phase. And it happened to be that the very same group of people who were in that room also became the real estate people that met totally separate from the Zoom and the meeting. So my favorite part was getting to know people who are just like me. Because what
Mhm.
happens in this world, going back to your question before the last question, is that people try to get you to align to one thing because
Mhm.
that's all their mind can attain. That's
Mhm.
all they can actually do. And that doesn't mean that they're a bad person. That's beautiful for them. But it also doesn't mean that I'm a bad person or misaligned or all over the place because I have multiple interests. I'm actually
Mhm.
not all over the place. I'm very
Mhm.
clear, but I'm clear about four things. Whereas that person who tries to get a person who looks unclear to be clear about one thing, they can't imagine being clear about four things. And that's
Mhm.
wonderful. Just when I was in that ideation group, we were like, okay, so this is how we are. We are this, we're that. We think of ideas, but we need people to help us execute. And we've got ideas for years, not days, years. We can come up with an idea about anything to make money, to fix something, to solve something. And we are wired this way. To accuse someone of being misaligned, unfocused, all over the place is to really say you were wired wrong or incorrectly. And we are not wired incorrectly. So, my favorite part of the cohort was finding people who are wired just like I am.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I think that collaboration pillar for those of you all who are listening or considering the cohort, we really talk about things like bankability, supplier readiness, but what we most pride ourselves on at the Kyra company are collaborations, right? We even measure this and really see how cohort members are creating things together, how they're problem solving. If there are things 5 months down the line that you do together, we track it because we think that's how ecosystems will be built. And that really reminds me of when I first had our onboarding interview with you. And I don't know, and you'll have to, I'm paraphrasing, but within that conversation, somehow Stacey Abrams came up, right? You were like, I was at a Stacey Abrams event, and I told you the entire time I'm listening to you talk, I kept saying, this sounds like Stacey Abrams because I had just listened to her on a podcast, right? Just in terms of the conviction for the opportunity. And so When you think about that moment that you were in that room, what were some of the convictions that came up for you and really still drive what you do today?
It was the main one was the conviction of helping people any way I see fit and not tying that to what makes sense. Nothing
Mhm,
I do makes sense. And I
mhm,
mean nothing. I get a feeling, I go with it, and usually that feeling is the Holy Spirit for me.
mhm,
And it is what I have come to learn is a prophetic anointing. And so I
mhm,
get a feeling, a sense, and I just do it. And usually, like almost all the time, it works out to be the thing that I should have done. And
mhm,
when my heart is not settled and I do something opposite of the feeling or the inclination, it always works out to be something I should not have done. And I know that. So now I'm learning to tell the difference faster and with more discernment. So being in that room allowed me the comfort and the ability to say, okay, when I want to help someone, like Stacey Abrams wants to help someone, just do it.
mhm,
She's a romance novelist. She's a legislator. She's obviously an entrepreneur. She ran a company that helped to facilitate in NBA events in Georgia. Of course, she's a political activist. She ran for governor. She has, if you look at her book in the back flap, she has 15 businesses or entities or
mhm,
things that interest her, which keeps her life excited, right? But then
mhm.
it also helps other people. I have 4. So if I'm like, oh, there's nothing going on with me that is not already going on with Stacey Abrams or anybody else. So it's like
Mhm,
a permission for her, seeing her give herself permission to be herself authentically and pursue
mhm,
her passions through business and entrepreneurship and position herself as a person who we can model ourselves after or just see ourselves in that space really freed me. It's
mhm,
not like I wasn't free already. I was doing it. I didn't have a name for it or a label for it. And I was a little bit uncertain while I was doing it, while I was being a multipreneur. But
mhm,
seeing her and being in that room, I was just like, you know what? We're good. And that's
mhm,
all I needed. God had already given me that I'm good, but seeing a human provide that affirmation, I was like,
mhm.
I'm good. I'm good. It's just going to
Yeah.
be. You say what you want to say, but I'm good. Thank you.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's an amazing story. So, if someone is listening to this 2 months from now, as we're opening up applications for the next cohort, what advice would you have for them?
I would say go, jump, do, be, all the things. Sign up. That was another thing. I need to tell this story. So when I first met Kyra in Florida, I thought when I first met her and the circumstances under which we by which we met, which was at a conference for my coach in Florida, I thought that my role was going to be helping her to identify people to come into the cohort in the Charlotte area. And my
Mhm,
role was spreading the word about the cohort to everybody else. And
mhm,
my role was to maybe find a few places that we could have our end of the year celebration because I know Charlotte real estate wise. So I know the community center, this, that, and the other. That was what I thought. And
mhm,
then as we kept meeting and talking, I was like, wait a minute, I think I want to join the cohort myself. My one business had below the revenue threshold, but my other one had above. And so I was like, actually, I think I can join the cohort under this other business, but I have the same mind. So clearly I'll learn what I need to learn for the other business. So
mhm,
that's what I did. I decided to apply at the last minute for myself. So, what I would tell people is just do it. Do not overanalyze what you have been inspired to take action on. Just don't do it. The over analysis of an inspired action that one should take will completely debilitate your actions and your next move. So, just do it and
mhm,
then figure it out later. So my advice would be just to do it. Just sign up. Just say yes. Just go. Just file the application. Just do whatever you're trying to do, whether it's a contract, a bid, whatever. I've learned so much in this cohort. I can't even contain all the things
mhm.
I've learned. And I just met with one other person from my cohort individually at the location that we're going to be in for our final gathering. And we just had a blast, just a great time getting to know one another, and we'll work together in the future. But just do it because you never know what other benefits are going to come outside of what they publish on the website as the items that you're going to learn and benefit from.
Yep. And it's like I tell you all, this is just the beginning, right? This is the first day of forever. Those 8 weeks, the relationships will start, things that will become lifelong partnerships. So, Dr. Aimy, this has been amazing. You have been such a wonderful member of the cohort, all of your participation. I have personally greatly appreciated as program managers. We appreciate the work that you're doing in the community. And if people want to keep in touch with you or follow your journey, where can they find you?
Sure. So they can find me at Aimy Steele on all social media platforms. So that's AIMYSTEELE. They can also find me on my nonprofit website, which is nncp.org. That's New North Carolina Project.org. So both work, but nncp.org. And of course, feel free to email me at amysteele@gmail.com. I snagged my own name early in the process.
I love it. Wonderful, guys. Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode. If you are interested in learning more about our programming, please visit tkcsmartceos.com. And we look forward to seeing you on the other side. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Smart Chat. Smart CEOs, you are on your way. We hope this episode has been fantastic for you. We are excited that you were here. So here's the deal. Follow us on all of our social media, look up the Kyra Company, and join us on all of our private platforms. We invite you to join our private Facebook group at the Smart CEOs. Jump in, join the conversation, and learn more about what we can do every day to grow our business and grow our community. Thanks so much for joining us. We're excited that you were here. Once again, I'm Kyra Hardwick, and you know it. I was thrilled to bring the Smart Chat to you. Take care. Talk to you soon.